Hey guys, this one's gonna be a quick video. I just want to make a really concise video on defensive box fighting and how to buy time when you have heals in your inventory that you wish to pop because of the fact that you don't have HP advantage in your fight. Let's say you're losing. Let's say you're not winning on HP. In that case, you really want to pop your heals before you take another trade, right? The problem is people have gotten so good at pressuring you and not giving you time to breathe. For a lot of people, it becomes very difficult. Let me tell you firsthand that if you have a lot of mats, there is a way to make sure that you never get piece controlled and you always have an avenue out. So the first thing that we're going to do is watch this clip and show you an example of really good defensive box fighting, and we're going to pay attention to how much time this player actually buys for himself, right? So really pay attention here. The player in question that does the defensive box fighting really well is not actually MrSavage in this clip. It's actually the enemy that he's fighting. So MrSavage, I want you guys to ignore the fact that he's using a cow. This was from last season, but this concept really still holds in this season. It's a fundamental of Fortnite. It holds regardless of what season it is. So ignore the fact that MrSavage is using a cow right now. He does use the cow to surprise the enemy and get an HP advantage, and that's where this fight starts, right? So we're gonna unmute the video and keep playing. Right, so MrSavage, if we play it back one more time, MrSavage gets a 55 damage crack. So if this enemy is at common HPs like 150 HP, which would happen if you pop 2 minis, you can then assume that this enemy is around 95 HP. Now all of this is probably not running through MrSavage's head. All you have to know is that you cracked your enemy, right? He's a less than 100 HP. Now if you compare that to MrSavage's HP being 184, you pretty much assume that he's full HP. At that point, MrSavage has a very significant HP advantage, which would tell him, okay, I need to push this guy as hard as possible right now. If I want to end the fight quick, I need to push him very hard, right? So that's what MrSavage really needs to do, okay? He needs to pressure this enemy and pressure him hard, which he does a really good job of, no doubt. I don't think he could have done a much better job. He did a really good job of pressuring the enemy right here, right? And constantly making sure that this guy can't pop heals. However, the enemy does a really good job of making sure that he's defensively piece controlling everything, but most importantly, he's expanding. He's constantly making boxes, making space for himself, because he has a very big excess of mats, right? He might even have a lot of heals, but the problem is he doesn't have a lot of time because MrSavage is pressuring him a lot. The thing he does very well is the fact that he's constantly expanding, right? He's making a lot of space for himself, right? The most important thing though is that he's making a lot of space for himself in the opposite direction, right? If you compare MrSavage's approach, which direction he's approaching from, this enemy is always going in the opposite direction and trying to get himself away from MrSavage, okay? And if we pay attention, we'll watch this clip a little bit through. MrSavage is really wanting to end this fight, so he does the desperate play of jumping in his box, right? Which I honestly think, with MrSavage's aim and how consistent it can be, it's justified, right? You do not want to give this enemy the opportunity to buy time for himself to heal and give away that advantage that you created at the very beginning. So the problem here, and the biggest reason why MrSavage gets 100 damage hit, is the fact that this player tried to expand up. Now remember, the fundamental, the principle is the fact that you always have to expand in the 180 direction, in the opposite direction, right? This enemy does not do that in this instance and then gets hit, gets punished as a result, tries to go up, right? And the only case when you should go up is if the enemy is underneath you, right? Notice how the opposite direction theory works in 3 dimensions, right? However, if MrSavage is approaching from the east side in this case, then this person needs to go for the west, right? Needs to go completely opposite direction. He should edit this wall. If you look at my mouse here, should edit this wall in the back and edit out that way, right? And I understand it's very difficult to edit without crosshair placement, but it's important that you learn how to do that and learn how to do it quick, right? It's very possible. I've seen Booga do it. I've seen a whole bunch of pros do it very easily, right? So it's very important that you learn how to do that, because this enemy gets hit for another 100 damage because of the mistake that they made, right? So now you have to understand there's a reason why MrSavage is actually pickaxing. I know a lot of people are going to make in the comments, oh, why didn't he just AR him? He doesn't actually have AR ammo, right? This is the main reason why MrSavage is going for that pickaxe. One more thing that I wanted you guys to understand, a lot of people, after, you know, MrSavage gets this cone, would immediately start fighting. For some reason, even though you have no possible way of killing MrSavage in time, because of the fact that you're like 2 HP and MrSavage is still 200, a lot of people in this case, if you're in the enemy's position, would still continue to fight, right? Even though you should understand you are in a losing fight. 99% of the time you are not going to win this fight, right? Especially after getting hit 100. So in this case, the enemy does a really good thing and just jumps out of the box, right? Edits out and goes out the side instead of continuing the trade. I want you guys to understand this. In a panic situation, don't just think, oh my god, I'm committed, I have to 50-50. if you have an opportunity, if you own an edit on the side or in the back, you should go for it. It's better than, you know, going for a shot in a fight that you're definitely gonna lose. So definitely understand that, like, the things that the enemy is doing here is very, very good. One more thing that I wanted to mention that MrSavage is doing really well is the fact that he's trying to sneak turbo builds every time he breaks a wall. So right here, breaks the wall, he tries to like flick around and grab as many walls as possible in that split second that the wall's broken, that he just broke, right? So in the case that he gets a wall, he can then piece control further. Unlucky for MrSavage, he doesn't actually get any pieces, and then he's going counterclockwise to approach this enemy's box. It's naturally better to go counterclockwise when you're approaching aggressively because of the fact that you find natural right hand peek. So I want you guys to notice right hand peek around this corner, right? Right hand peek there, and then as he's approaching this wall as well, he's approaching on a right hand angle. So this is why it's better, if you're looking for bird's eye view, to go counterclockwise if you're playing aggressively. It's not end all be all if you go the other way in the clockwise manner, especially when you have to and it's inefficient to go counterclockwise, but just to understand that you do get natural right hand peeks if you're going counterclockwise. So I want you guys to notice one thing that this enemy does really well when expanding in the opposite direction is that before MrSavage breaks this wall, they always place backward stare, right? And this allows you to get a mini off and then place that backward stare and run away. So that's really, really good by this enemy. Understanding is really, really good. And then immediately goes back through the old build, changes layers as well, and buying as much time as possible. Again, backward stare, and denying the fact that MrSavage can, you know, get in here. And you have to understand, MrSavage is trying to place a code or a ramp himself in the box. It's just not working because of the fact that the enemy is always guaranteeing the backward stare before MrSavage breaks the wall. And I want you guys to notice, the enemy's not even looking at MrSavage. If you look at this silhouette through the wall, you'll understand that the enemy already planned the backward stare. They know that they need to be expanding, right? Because of the fact that they are very low HP, they need to be healing here, right? It's not time to go for a counter shot, especially when you have minis and you can pop those minis guaranteed, and you have mats to support it. You have mats to buy time to pop those minis. You should definitely be taking the time to pop those minis and then looking for a counter shot to maybe, you know, even out the fight. But here, you know, the enemy's already committed. Like, you can tell what their plan is just because of the fact that they're turned around here. Like, they're not even looking at MrSavage, right? And MrSavage tries to place a stare, but the enemy times it perfectly. And one thing I want you guys to notice, if you're turned around and your plan is already placed the backward stare, all you have to do is listen for that pickaxe. You can still hear it. That's what the enemy is doing. You can hear the pickaxe behind you. One swing, and then right before the second swing, you place that backward stare. Because the second swing is when that wall is going to break, especially when it's a fresh wall, right? So in this case, you're definitely going to make sure that you get that backward stare, and then the enemy runs, right? The reason the enemy runs is because they don't have any heals left. Right now, I'm assuming the enemy is around 60 HP, around, you know, 10 whites and then like 2 minis popped, right? Because of the fact that they spent so much time, you know, popping all those heals. This is particularly because it's an off-spawn fight. However, where we can apply this better in our fights is the fact that, you know, sometimes we have 555 mats with 6 minis, 3 bigs, but we still die really quickly because of the fact that we don't understand how to expand properly. And this example from a very high elo game, MrSavage solo cash grub, from an enemy is showing us how to expand properly, right? Let's look at a further detailed, you know, analysis of like how to expand properly. I'm going to give you guys a good explanation from a previous video that I made right here of why expanding gives you time to pop extra minis and actually how to do it more efficiently than this guy did. Here's the video. So first off, the one statement that you need to remember about expanding is this. Here, let's see. Let me switch to the correct brush. Okay, look. Let's say this is your box, right? You're in here,
Yeah.
and then someone approaches here. Which way should you expand?
The opposite.
Yes, you should go this way, right? You should expand here. Now notice, it's a very bad habit in general to go through someone's build, right? Because then they have no escape, they can only go backwards, which is awkward. So then he's gonna do this. Notice?
Yeah, usually people do that.
Who has the shorter path to get to the...
I do.
Exactly, which gives you extra time to pop a mini. So the general rule of thumb is like 1 box, 1 mini. Bigs are harder, you need to make more space. But in general, if you make this box really, really fast and, you know, close, reset, and then start popping the mini, you should be able to pop it off before he gets a second swing. Right? And notice when he gets a second swing on this wall, you don't want to hold it. You want to backwards ramp like this.
Yeah.
And then go here because it's the opposite direction. Right?
Yeah.
And then pop the second mini. You notice this, right? And then he's gonna do this. Right? He's gonna go the long way to get to you. And then you took a short path, right? You're gonna get the pin mini. You're gonna get the same mini off, right? So it's free heals. You should never die with mats in your inventory if you know how to expand properly. Does that make sense? So that's basically it, guys. It's very, very simple. This fight actually ended up turning into a very elongated chase into a, MrSavage getting griefed and the enemy getting griefed. But I want you guys to understand there are situations when you have max mads and you have max shield, especially with the chuck cannon or something like that, and you're not buying yourself time when you're losing fights to play defensive box fighting properly, right? You're not giving yourself the opportunity to pop those heals. You really should be. You really, really should be. And I want you guys to practice this arena and learn it for yourself, and you'll see how powerful it is. The art of expanding is one of the most underappreciated topics in Fortnite to this day, and I really think it'll be something really popular in the future when people learn it properly and give it the time that it deserves. So please give a like on this video if you guys enjoyed the video and actually learned something new. And I want you guys to try this. Every time you're losing HP in arena, every time you're losing HP in scrims, this works even better in solos because of the fact that there can't be pinches in solos, right? There's only one person pressuring you. You have all the time in the world to not be dying there, and you need to make sure that you're not, wasting that opportunity, and make sure that you're never dying with max mats and never dying with max shield in your inventory. If you expand properly, you can beat people even like MrSavage, who is playing the aggressive side perfectly. Yet if you play the defensive side properly, you will get time to heal, especially with the minis are definitely possible to get off. Big pots is a completely different story. Chuck cannon is definitely possible. Floppers, slurpfish, right? All these different types of heals you can definitely pop off before the enemy breaks your wall and before you need to place that backward stare. So again, like this video if you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any sort of questions, please leave them down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.